City Kitty already hanging out with us in the chat. What does she want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? I'll tell you what I want to talk about. The road to SummerSlam heating up in a major way over the weekend on Friday Night SmackDown and on Saturday night's main event. And let's not forget the SummerSlam kickoff show at Fanatics Fest. We're going to talk all about it here on a live edition of Squared Circle Radio right here on our YouTube channel. My name is Chris Belcher. Thank you so much for being here, whether you are watching live, watching the replay, listening to us on podcast, whatever way that you are checking out our show. We appreciate it very, very much. I have got pages and pages and notes here to talk about just everything road to SummerSlam. But if you are live with us on the YouTube channel, drop your comments and questions in the chat. You drive the conversation tonight. I am flying solo tonight. So listen, I want to talk about these things, but I also want to talk about what you want to hear about. The show is for the fans, by the fans. And tonight, we're going to have a conversation about why wrestling fans love wrestling so much. So, lot to get to tonight. There's an awesome This Week in Wrestling History that I want to talk about, a very special birthday in the world of wrestling that I want to talk about. But let's talk about SummerSlam. Biggest party of the summer, less than 2 weeks away as we sit here tonight. So next week will be our official preview show. But the match that has been speculated for a long, long time, Saturday night's main event gave us this SummerSlam match that is the biggest headline coming out of the weekend, in my opinion. And that is Gunther versus Nick Aldis has been made official, ladies and gentlemen, for SummerSlam. And it's been long speculated that would Nick Aldis ever get into a WWE ring? Those of us who are wrestling fans have been following Nick Aldis. We know how good he is. We know what he's done outside of the WWE, but would he ever get into a WWE ring? Well, after last week, when Gunther assaulted Nick Aldis on Friday Night SmackDown, we did not see the SmackDown general manager appear until Saturday night's main event. The stipulation was made that if Gunther and Sammy get the win over Cody and Punk, that Gunther and Sammy would be added to the main event of SummerSlam, but Nick Aldis was there to take care of it, decking Gunther with the WWE Championship, a little scuffle at the SummerSlam kickoff, and Triple H making it official. Nick Aldis will step into the ring coming up at SummerSlam. Now, lots to talk about here. Lots of different ways we could go with this. I do believe this is the biggest headline coming out of Saturday night's main event weekend. We're going to talk about Danhausen. We're going to talk about Roman Reigns. We're going to talk about Cody and Punk. But I do believe that Nick Aldis getting into a WWE ring for the first time is the biggest headline. Why do you think that, Chris? Well, let's just think about the pop that he got in Madison Square Garden when he came out from under the ring, pulled the referee out to cost Gunther the match, and then hit him with a championship belt. If you missed it, go back and listen to the pop, because the pop might be one of the biggest of the night. Yes, Karl Anthony Towns got a big pop, and we're going to talk about that too. But the pop for Nick Aldis was huge. And that means that people remember just who Nick Aldis is and how good that Nick Aldis actually is. You know, on the SummerSlam kickoff show on Sunday, Michael Cole mentioned Nick Aldis returns to the ring. And Gunther, a couple weeks ago, when they first had their little scuffle, said that Nick Aldis was jealous of him because he's a failed wrestler. So the combination of those two things tell me that this is not just a GM getting into the ring. This is not what we saw in 2020 when Adam Pearce, another former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, stepped into the ring in the pandemic with Roman Reigns. This is not going to be that. I do believe this is going to be the true return to form of Nick Aldis. And I'm going to pop another picture up here Nick Aldis has always been a body guy. He's always looked great. He's always been in fantastic shape. Here he is wrestling Cody Rhodes at All in Chicago. And here's another one, a picture of him wrestling Cody Rhodes in Nashville, Tennessee later that year. I was in attendance. Andy and I talk about this match all the time when we talk about Nick Aldis. So excited for Nick Aldis to get into a WWE ring. City Kitty Live is in the chat. I'm seated for Nick Aldis and Gunther. Okay, you're going to have to explain that to me because, okay, another comment. Your SummerSlam kickoff show was fire with Nick and Gunther. Yes, it was. You're seated. Is that lingo that I'm just not aware of? Because I need to know if you're seated because you're not excited or you're locked in for Aldis and Gunther. That might be just ridiculous on my part that I'm not interpreting what you're saying. All that to say, this is Nick Aldis. It means I'm here for it. Okay, thank you. City Kitty Live is in chat means I'm here for it. Okay, I'm just making sure. Maybe that's just me and just not being up on the lingo. That's my bad. City Kitty's here for it. I am certainly here for it. I know Andy York is here for it. If you're live with us in the chat and you're here for it, let's hear it. Drop it in the chat. How excited are you for Nick Aldis getting into a WWE ring? Because I'll be honest, they said it on Busted Open this morning. This is one of the most intriguing matches in all of SummerSlam. And that comes on a card with Obafemi, Brock Lesnar, Hell in a Cell, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, but Gunther versus Nick Aldis, if done correctly. Now, that is the key. If done correctly, this could be one of the highlights of the entire weekend because Nick Aldis is one of the most successful NWA World's Heavyweight Champions of all time, not just in the last 10 years, 15 years, what have you, of all time. Not to mention he resurrected the NWA brand with his reign as champion for over 1,000 days, but he's one of the most successful champions of all time. So again, if done correctly, this could steal the weekend in a wild way. This could steal the weekend. Now you may be thinking to yourself, this is probably going to be one and done for Nick Aldis. He's going to get in the ring. He's going to lose to Gunther, and that's going to be that. That may be so, guys. That may be it. But Busted Open also floated a theory around this morning that I want to bring up to your all's attention too. And that being, well, what if this whole feud, not just this match, what if this whole ordeal with Aldis and Gunther has been a test to see how the crowd reacts to Nick Aldis? Let's let them have a little shoving match and let's see where the crowd goes. Okay, let's give them a little more and let's see. Okay, they're responding. Let's make this thing official. Well, what if Aldis is the same way when he gets in the ring? What if right now the plan is for Aldis to get in there, one and done versus Gunther, and then he's done? Can he go back to being general manager? I have no idea. That's for WWE to decide, not me. But maybe it's one and done for Nick Aldis. Or maybe, just maybe, WWE is thinking, let's let the national treasure get in there and let's see how fans respond to him. Let's see how Nick Aldis does. And if he does well, the fans respond, maybe we get a little run out of Nick Aldis. Because I'll tell you right now, Nick Aldis is 39 years old. That is young in today's WWE. That's younger than Cody Rhodes. That's younger than Roman Reigns. That's younger than CM Punk. I'm pretty sure that's younger than Seth Rollins. Guess what? Those are your two main events. So Aldis is nowhere near washed up, ladies and gentlemen. He came to WWE as the general manager coming off of a shoulder injury. Okay. So to put it into even bigger context, anybody in the live chat want to take a guess? Maybe City Kitty, you want to take a guess? Without looking it up, how old was AJ Styles when he debuted in the WWE in 2016? The Royal Rumble 2016. How old was AJ Styles when he debuted? Think about that. AJ Styles was 40 years young when he debuted in the WWE in 2016. And he got 10 years out of it, people. Nick Aldis is younger than that. So, two different ways, obviously, that we can go with this. Real good chance, I'll tell you right now, there's a real good chance that I think with Gunther and with Aldis, it's going to be a fantastic match. But it's going to be one and done for Nick Aldis. I do think that. But I think there's a really small chance. This is what I'm hoping for. I think it's one and done, but my hope, my heart tells me, man, give Nick Aldis a run. Give him a little bit of a run. Let's see what happens. Let him get in there. Let him wrestle guys like Cody Rhodes. Let him wrestle guys like CM Punk. Come on. Let's see what the national treasure can do in the WWE. Because I'm here for it, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's going to be great. Next week, we're going to do our prediction show, our official SummerSlam preview show. I just gave you my prediction for the match, but I'll mull it over the next week or so, and maybe I'll tell you how I would book it if it were me. I don't know. Andy York will be back next week, and we'll preview SummerSlam, but Nick Aldis versus Gunther is official for the biggest party of the summer, and man, I'm here for it. I really am. All right, let's move on as we take a swig of Mountain Dew for the working man. I apologize. I am here by myself tonight. If you're just now joining us, welcome to Squared Circle Radio. Me taking a drink live on the air shows you that I am live on the air. And also when I'm live on the air, my headphones have a little short in the cord and it just went out. There it is. Okay. So again, you're catching me live on YouTube. This is as real as it gets, ladies and gentlemen. I am holding down the fort by myself, and we're going to do the best that we can do. All right, let's talk about the other big news from the weekend. Got a comment here live in the chat. City Kitty here. I'm going to have to watch some matches with Nick before SummerSlam. All right. I don't know where to watch it, but obviously go find the All-In match with Cody Rhodes. That's from 2018. Later on that year, it's either in late September or early October, 2 out of 3 Falls match, NWA 70th anniversary show from Nashville, Tennessee. Cody Rhodes, Nick Aldis, the rematch. Andy and I were in the building for it. Go check that one out. He has some other incredible matches. I mean, he wrestled Matt Cardona when Cardona was the NWA champion. And he was a mainstay in TNA for a long time, but his best work was done as NWA champion. So I highly recommend those matches. Those are just obviously the two that pop off on the top of my head here. All right, let's talk about some other major news from over the weekend. I mentioned the tag team match from Saturday night's main event, as we are technically, I'm reacting to Saturday night's main event tonight. We just might do it in a weird way. Gunther and Sami Zayn were placed in the tag team match, Saturday night's main event, with an opportunity to make the SummerSlam main event a fatal 4-way. Thanks to Nick Aldis, that didn't happen. Cody Rhodes and CM Punk got the win in Madison Square Garden, but we talked last week about how there had to be some animosity, and we got some animosity. Now, on Saturday night's main event, it may not have seemed like a lot of animosity. What we saw on the screen was CM Punk with his belt over his shoulder, hitting Cody Rhodes in the face. And then on WWE social media, they aired this just for a minute. This backstage interaction with Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. Cody basically telling Punk, hey, what you did was on purpose. Punk saying, no, it's not. And then they have an interaction at Fanatics Fest at the SummerSlam kickoff show on Sunday. And it ends with Punk shoving Cody in the face, saying, hey, what I did on Saturday was an accident, but this is no accident. And he shoves him in the face. So we've got some animosity between them. That's what Andy and I talked about last week. Really great tag match on Saturday night's main event. But we said whatever happens afterwards, that's what we need. WWE was able to further two major stories with the result. We just talked about Gunther and Nick Aldis. And now, of course, the animosity between Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. Now, let's give some context to Punk hitting Cody with the championship in the face. Accidentally, on purpose, whatever it might be. Back in the WrestleMania feud with Roman Reigns, Roman brought up the fact that after War Games, CM Punk was walking behind him, holding up the championship and making fun of Roman Reigns. And you could argue that that's this side of CM Punk coming back up. Now, if you listen to what Punk told Cody, hey, Cody, it's your ego talking. I'm not Randy Orton. I'm not John Cena. I'm not going to stab you in the back. You may think I'm going to, but I'm not going to. But listen, Cody has every right to believe that. I mean, look, John Cena and Randy Orton were his two mentors, and they both stabbed him in the back. So forgive Cody Rhodes if he's a little bit on edge with this CM Punk storyline. At least now that Cody Rhodes accidentally hit Punk at Saturday night's main event, and then Punk accidentally hit him with the belt, and then some words were exchanged. So here's the thing with these two. We can start saying, oh, maybe he did it with this. Maybe he did it because of that. Maybe this, maybe that. We know that Punk has a history of not getting along with guys. On screen or off screen, doesn't matter. And Cody and Punk have said they were close friends. Cody even came out at Fanatics Fest, tried to apologize for the way that he reacted backstage. But he said he said he was embarrassed by it, but he wouldn't apologize for it. Punk said they were brothers. Cody said, no, we're not brothers. So you can see where this little bitty pieces of animosity here and there are getting plugged in, which is good. But Sam Roberts brought up this point on his podcast. And he said that these two guys, Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, need to say things that can't be taken back. Like, now that we have this little animosity, it needs to fuel us to these guys ruining their friendship forever. Because they both want to be the top guy in the company. Now, when I say things that would ruin a friendship, things they can't take back, maybe it has to do with AEW, maybe it doesn't. But look at what CM Punk said in the Roman Reigns feud. Talking about burying Roman Reigns next to his dead father. Who's to say he doesn't say that to Cody Rhodes, who has the same situation? Andy talked about this last week when CM Punk eliminated Cody Rhodes tried to eliminate Cody Rhodes from the Royal Rumble. He said, I'm not going to lose to Dusty's boy. Who's to say Punk's not going to pull that back out? And Cody may be thinking that. So maybe that's why he's already on edge. And again, you combine that with what happened with Orton, with what happened with Cena, and you can imagine Cody Rhodes is on edge. Also, let's add into the fact that he lost his WWE championship. He's trying to get that championship back. So, all these things are stacked up on Cody Rhodes, and maybe, just maybe, it's going to cause him to explode. Imagine that. City Kitty in the chat. Glad I saw the backstage interaction before it was pulled. Edgy Cody is good. Yes. Cody with a little bit of edge. That's what we need. And by the way, if you didn't see this backstage interaction before it got pulled, just search it on Twitter. It's still out there. I watched it today. I didn't watch it on Saturday when it happened. I went back and watched it today. And I could still find it. So you can still find it. Again, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, backstage interaction, Saturday night's main event. CM Punk was trying to get an interview backstage, and Cody Rhodes basically comes up to him and says, "Hey, we don't need any of the cameras here, but what was that for?" And then there we go. Of course, it leads to the SummerSlam kickoff show, in which we had a bit of a pull apart. Had the cops come up there even? I mean, come on. So, both of them wanting that top spot. We'll have to see how this plays out. You could easily, bring this up on Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. They didn't tonight on Raw. But, of course, it'll be brought back up on SmackDown. And then after this Friday, we only have 2 shows left, a Raw and a SmackDown before SummerSlam. So it'll be interesting to see what the next developments are for Cody and for Punk coming up on SmackDown this week. All right. Elsewhere on Saturday night's main event, let me just quickly run through some of the other results here before we get to another big topic. Swig a Mountain Dew for the working man here as we I just knocked over a bunch of stuff. Jeez. Swig a Mountain Dew for the working man. Hang on. All right. Here we go. All right. Another comment to get to here in the chat real quick. I am having the hardest time with this cable for my headphones. It's driving me nuts. All right. Here we go. All right. Byron Rodales, 1776. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that right. Says hi in the chat. What's up, ma'am? Glad you're with us tonight. What do you want to talk about? As Cody Rhodes would say. Want to talk about what you guys want to hear about here on the show. So make sure you drop those comments and questions in the chat. We'll be happy to get to each and every one of those, or at least as much as we possibly can. Let's talk about the rest of Saturday night's main event real quick. Man, lots of stuff happened. I thought the show was really, really good. I thought MSG looked great. I thought the presentation was just phenomenal. It really was. So let's talk about it. Fatal Influence, as we predicted, winning the Women's Tag Team Championship from Bailey, or not from Bailey, from Brie Bella and from Paige. Speaking of Bailey and Lyra Valkyria, Lyra getting the victory here. Now, I'll be honest, this was the low point of the show for me. I really did not enjoy this match at all. I really didn't. I thought this match should have been Bailey in her backstage walk, Lyra attacking her from behind, dragging her to the ringside area, just beat her down and be done. That's what it should have been. A lot of people online speculating this was Bailey's last match. I don't think that's the case, but believe what you want to believe, I guess. But I thought this was the low point of the show. I didn't think you needed a full match between them. Even you did get the full match, and broken nose or not, doesn't matter. I'm not taking that into account. It wasn't very good, I didn't think. So, but Lyra Valkyria picking up the win. Let's talk about Danhausen. Danhausen and JD McDonough in a street fight. We've heard for a long, long time Danhausen, we've seen Danhausen working on this cloning machine. What's he got cooking up? Well, on Friday, he had a cat in a crate. And he alluded to this. Well, Saturday, we saw him put the cat in the crate. And then the cat came out of the cloning machine as the big cat, Carl Anthony Towns, former Kentucky Wildcat, center for the NBA champion New York Knicks, coming out to be in Danhausen's corner, giving a choke slam to JD McDonough and to Dominic Mysterio. Man, that was super cool to see. Being a Kentucky Wildcats fan, seeing Karl Anthony Towns come back out, so cool, especially what Danhausen has meant to the city of New York and this championship. And the shenanigans continue with the Mini-Housens. And then tonight, you saw him with Joe Hendry. And then the match is official. Dominic Mysterio and Danhausen coming up at SummerSlam. Now, there's a bigger discussion here. Let me see if I can start this over. Danhausen's affiliation with the Knicks and bringing out Karl Anthony Towns was incredibly entertaining. Like, I didn't see anybody online complaining about the involvement of Karl Anthony Towns. What I did see was people complaining about the involvement of Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Why is this needed? Blah, 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 blah. We're going to have a bigger discussion about Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins coming up next week on our preview show, so don't miss that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. But let's look at this. I don't understand why people are upset by this. Wrestling has had celebrities for its entire existence, or at least since WrestleMania 1. I don't know why people are upset about this. You were in Madison Square Garden and you brought out the finals MVP to put him alongside the world heavyweight champion in a closing segment. What's wrong with that? Wrestling is supposed to be fun. Do we have PTSD that celebrities have ruined wrestling? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're going to say, no, Chris. We have PTSD that TKO is the one that's ruined wrestling. That's what we have PTSD for. And I can see your argument. I really can. But this goes into a bigger discussion about why wrestling fans love wrestling so much. And it's because we don't want outside forces to get in the way and make decisions to change what we love. Now, I can relate that to college football, for example. My buddy Josh Pate was on John Chris' podcast about a month or so ago, and he kind of talked about this, about how there are decision makers in the world of college football making decisions, and they don't know anything about college football. And let's just take the college football playoff in the expansion talk for an example, and what that might do to the sport. Well, we saw the involvement, or we think we saw the involvement of TKO, Pat McAfee, Jelly Roll into WrestleMania, and what wrestling fans felt about that. You can't have people like TKO making decisions based on just increasing revenue and taking away from what the sport of professional wrestling is. Now, guys, I see some comments about a couple other things. I am going to get to that, I promise. Dr. Durst chiming back in with us in the chat. Thank you for being here. He said he doesn't mind them doing it, talking about Roman, Jalen Brunson, and that sort of thing. It was just too long, and Brunson should have talked. I agree that Brunson should have talked, because I think it's important when you bring these celebrities in, it's because they want to be there. That's been the knock on celebrities for so long in wrestling, is that they don't even want to be there. Well, the last several years, Bad Bunny, Logan Paul, Pat McAfee, just to name a few, have been excited to be there. And I think Dr. Durst in the comments is right, that maybe we did want to see a little more from Jalen Brunson, that he wanted to be there, excited for him to be there. I think one of the biggest issues with TKO and with their involvement and what fans believe with their involvement is that trying to put wrestling into a box. And you just can't do that. Danhausen. That's pro wrestling. You can't put that in a box. You can't turn pro wrestling into pro sports. Because no matter how hard you try, the root of wrestling is entertainment. Yes, it's a sport because it's athletic, but the root of wrestling is entertainment. That's the fun part. And that's what we don't want taken away. And you can't fake the fun part. So I think wrestling fans love wrestling so much because it's not a real sport, per se. Wrestling fans love wrestling because it's different. So why would you try to make it the same if the fans want it to be different? Now, I know it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here because I'm talking about I approve of the Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton thing because of where they were in Madison Square Garden. And I approve of celebrity involvement in wrestling. And I'm also sitting here talking about trying to make wrestling, trying to keep it in its own box, not trying to make it into another sport. I guess I'm trying to say that you can't make wrestling formulaic like other sports. For example, let's go back to college football for a minute. Every certain little bit of time in college football and in college basketball, I guess, you have media timeouts. And you do, well, this drive is brought to you by this, or this field goal is brought to you by that, or this spot, or that advertisement, this, that, and the other. And I feel like they're turning the wrestling business into the business of wrestling. And that's not what it should be. City Kitty in the chat. We love Danhausen, and I feel he has furthered the enthusiasm for the sport. I agree. Dr. Durst with another comment saying, for decades, they've had comedy relief. For sure they have. It's always been there. That's why wrestling is entertainment, not just a sport. So you can't put pro wrestling in a box to make it a sport like football or basketball or baseball or what have you. Just like you can't, like I mentioned earlier, you can't just blindly sign a piece of paper that's going to increase revenue. Yes, it's great that everybody's making more money, but you can't just blindly sign a piece of paper to increase revenue without realizing what you're affecting on the other side. You know, WrestleMania ticket sales, that was all we talked about for the longest time because they had less people in Las Vegas for the second year in a row. And we're going to talk about SummerSlam ticket sales here in just a minute. And they might not be exactly what people would think they should be. The building's only set up for 29,000 people, and WWE hasn't even moved that many tickets yet. So, one of the things that we talk about is pricing out the normal fan. And one of the ways they're doing this is taking away house shows. Now, they're bringing back some house shows and live events, and I hope that's more of the norm. That's going to start happening again, because it allows the smaller towns, smaller folk to be able to get to events without it being too expensive. Wrestling is blue collar. It's not suit and tie. It's not political. That's what keeps it fun. How many people talk about their grandma watching TV on a Saturday morning? And I've never heard language come out of my grandma's mouth until she was yelling at superstar Billy Graham, or she was yelling at Sergeant Slaughter, or she was this, or she was that. Like, that's blue collar. That's what wrestling is. So let's keep it that way. Let's keep it fun in that way. All right. I know that wrestling has probably cooled off since it was super red hot in 2023 and 2024. It's not as popular as maybe it was. Yes, I see that comment about slashing prices for SummerSlam. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But where was I going with this? Oh, this whole thing. It sounds like what I'm saying is a shot at TKO for cooling wrestling off. It sounds like I'm taking a shot at TKO for the ESPN deal. But listen to me when I say this. The place that WWE is in right now is exactly where Vince McMahon wanted it to be. This was his vision. If you think that ESPN would have come to Vince McMahon and offered him the deal that WWE has right now, do you think he would really have turned it down? No. Everybody says, oh, if Vince was in charge, we wouldn't be doing this or doing that. Wrong. Wrong. Because Vince wanted to make as much money as the next person. But he also wanted to not pay athletic commissioners. That's why he didn't want it to be pro wrestling. He wanted it to be sports entertainment. And yes, ticket prices were more affordable when Vince was going on. But you better believe that if this ESPN deal would have come knocking, he'd be doing the same thing. Doesn't matter how many advertisements. He'd be doing the same thing. So I'm not sitting here trying to bash TKO. And I'm not. Some of their methods are working. Some of them are not. What I'm saying is pro wrestling fans love pro wrestling for what pro wrestling is. It's different. Let's keep it that way. Let's keep it that way. All right. Let's take a little pause for the cause. My voice is a little dry. I need a drink. But let the Reverend Tom Bryce tell you what's coming up next on the great station that is Sports Wire Radio, and we'll be back on the other side.
Looking for all the latest happenings in the world of sports and wrestling? Well, you're in luck, because Sports Wire Radio has you covered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year, with great shows in the world of sports, such as the Pinstripe Chronicles, hosted by Uncle Tats, Donald Stewart, and Rob Barrows, New York Baseball Talk with Chris Bazaya and Rob Maraska, the Liftoff Jets, also hosted by Chris Bazaya and Sharman Phillip, Neil Villapiano and the Devil's State of Mind, Randy Dillon's Hockey Fan Chat. In the world of wrestling, Sports Wire Radio has you covered with Squared Circle Radio, featuring Chris Belcher, Andy York, and Jared Justice. Those sit-down marks with DB, Primo, AJ, and Michael. A work in progress, featuring the Mayor of Canton, Piles, and Glenn Abbott. You can catch all of these great shows and more anytime, anywhere, and any place via the Listen Live button on sportswireradio.org, and you can also catch Sports Wire Radio anytime on YouTube at Sports Wire Radio 6579 to catch all the latest happenings in the world of wrestling. Sports Wire Radio has you covered. It's all sports matters and all wrestling matters here on Sports Wire Radio. I am your host, the owner of Sports Wire Radio, the #1 global radio station, the owner of the Promo Wrestling Federation, and one of the owners of the Pride Wrestling Federation. Your voice, figuratively and literally, where all wrestling matters, the Reverend Tom Bryce.
Sorry, I was muted there. Thank you, Tom Bryce, for all you do here for Squared Circle Radio. We appreciate it so very much. And thank you all for being with us. Whether you're live in the chat, watching the replay, listening on podcast, doesn't matter. We appreciate you either way. This is Squared Circle Radio. My name is Chris Belcher. And again, I could not tell you enough how thankful I am that you are supporting our show. We are on currently the best 2+ month run this podcast has ever seen, and we've been going for quite a while. So if you're new to the show, thank you so much for being here. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. The thumbs up button, that's the like button that helps the algorithm of the show. Those are just ways that you can help support the show and to get the word out there to build this community up. Again, we are having the best 2.5 month stretch we've ever had. Let's keep it going. And we do that by you interacting with the show and telling a friend about Squared Circle Radio. All right, let's get to some of these comments. Sorry, I wanted to talk about just a little bit about why wrestling fans love wrestling so much. And so I ignored a couple comments along the way, so I do apologize. Let me get back to some of these here. Dr. Durst in the chat, a Danhausen R-Truth story would be comedy gold. What if, he says, what if R-Truth brought his own voodoo to challenge Danhausen? Listen, it is a crime if WWE never puts them on screen together to do something. Like, they have to do something. Let's see. City Kitty in the chat saying, why are we getting Dom and Danhausen again at SummerSlam? Didn't we just get that on Raw? We just got JD and Danhausen both on Raw and a Saturday Night's Main Event. I don't know that we've gotten straight up Dom and Danhausen. I don't think. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me. I'm certainly open to be corrected. All right, Dr. Durst in the chat with us. Also, why do you think they went Gunther and Aldis? What's in it for either man? Well, Dr. Durst, you missed the first 12 minutes of the show where I talked about that. So I won't rehash it. I'll just say that if Gunther wins, it could be a one and done for Nick Aldis, and it brings back up the career killer moniker for Gunther, makes him stronger. I don't think Nick Aldis is going to win, but you get a Nick Aldis match in the WWE. If you're not familiar with Nick Aldis and his work, just go YouTube him. Okay, just go YouTube him. If this is done correctly, what's in it for both guys could possibly steal SummerSlam weekend. So, but I highly recommend go back and watch the first part of this episode where I dove in a little deeper about that. Dr. Durst was also talking in the comments about slashing prices for SummerSlam. Yes, Saturday night's main event, there was an advertisement that you could put a code in to get starting $25 tickets. So let's talk about SummerSlam ticket prices. I'm going to flash this graphic back up here that I showed just a few minutes ago. Now, I'm not talking about prices specifically, but just tickets in general for SummerSlam. Now, rumors would have you to believe that there's internal concern about ticket prices, or about ticket sales, rather. Here's a couple of things. I want you to look at this graphic. Those of you who are watching on the YouTube screen, if you're listening on podcast, I suggest to hop on over to YouTube. I'm showing a seating map of US Bank Stadium. And what you notice on said seating map is half the stadium is blocked off. They only have this set up for about 30,000 people. And we know that an NFL stadium holds at least 60. So they got half of it blocked off. Why is that? Oh, WWE can't even fill up a stadium. 2 nights is too much. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let's put some logic on this argument, shall we? WWE only has half the stadium set up because WWE wants to set up half the stadium. Here's a novel idea. When SummerSlam came to Nashville in 2022, they only set up half the stadium. When SummerSlam was in Las Vegas in 2021, they only set up half the stadium. WWE is making deals right now on these stadiums, and they're getting such good deals on them that they can only set up half the stadium. Now, once tickets start moving, they'll open up more seats if they want to do that. We saw that at WrestleMania this year, that more seats opened up. We also saw a last minute ticket surge over the last couple days rather, of people buying tickets, trying to get the lowest price that they possibly can, and they're still going to go to the show. So WWE may or may not internally be concerned with SummerSlam ticket sales. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know. But the bottom line here is that WWE is preparing to only sell half the stadium because WWE is okay with that. Year over year comparison, to last year's SummerSlam, yes, I understand. You want to at least match that number. But think about it. New York market versus Minnesota market. Two totally different things, almost not even comparable. So, Albany, New York was SmackDown on Friday night, and they had like 7,500 people. Saturday night in the Garden, same state, but you moved to Manhattan, New York City for Saturday night's main event. They put 15,000 people in that stadium. So, again, New York versus Minnesota. There might be a reason that Minnesota didn't get a WrestleMania. Maybe this ticket sales are showing that. But again, WWE only has half the stadium set up. They're still going to make a profit. They're still going to make a profit on this. So I think the people that are looking at this, especially comparing it to AEW and Wembley Stadium or whatever, they're just trying to tear down WWE. Does WWE want more than 29,000 people in the stadium? Of course they do. They would love it if there were 60,000 people in that stadium. But if it doesn't happen, that's okay. You're not going to see it on TV anyway. So, let's just chill with some of these arguments. All right, let's just chill with some of these. Dr. Durst in the chat, they're counting on Lesnar to bring in a local crowd. Yeah, probably so. Probably so. I would agree with that. You know, I've been thinking about adding a new segment to this show. Excuse me. About some of these internet wrestling rumors, commentary from the internet wrestling community, and just putting some logic on it. We just put some logic on this ticket thing. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But we put some logic on it. Because I feel like a lot of the internet wrestling community don't put any logic on their arguments. So let's put a little more logic on a rumor that came out earlier this week. And that's Braun Breaker being upset with how his creative played out earlier this year. For those of you who might be out of the loop, Braun Breaker had a chance on the season premiere of Monday Night Raw to battle CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship. He lost. And then he had a feud with Seth Rollins after that, which he won the first match and he lost two after that. So I'm not entirely sure where his frustration lies. So I'm going to put some logic on this situation here. The reason I'm not sure where his frustration lies is because he had a world title shot and he lost it. Now, if the internet rumor is true and he's frustrated and he expressed wanting a different direction, well, dude, everybody wants to be world champion and not everybody can be. So were you upset because you didn't win the championship and you wanted to win the championship? I think Sami Zayn feels right now. I think Jacob Fatu feels. I think Cody Rhodes feels. Gunther. Drew McIntyre. How do you think they feel? All I'm saying is that if that's why you're frustrated, Braun Breaker, then you're not the only one. Let's put some logic on the next portion. Because shortly after that, yes, Braun Breaker was attacked at the beginning of the Royal Rumble, immediately eliminated, would lead you to believe that was a feud with Seth Rollins headed towards WrestleMania. But what happened? Braun Breaker got injured. So I don't think you can be frustrated at your creative when you got injured. That's nobody's fault, not even Breaker's fault. You can't be frustrated about your creative when you got hurt. Because I can pretty much guarantee you were going to walk into that WrestleMania match and beat Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. Arguably the best in-ring performer of this generation. You were going to beat him at WrestleMania. So how can you be upset with that? Let's take it a step further. You were ready to go at Backlash, and you beat Seth Rollins. You're in a feud with a dude that's about to main event SummerSlam. 2-time Money in the Bank winner. Multi-time World Heavyweight Champion. First ballot Hall of Famer. And you're upset because you're beating him in a feud? Now, if you're talking about being saddled with Austin Theory and the vision not working out exactly like you wanted it to, that stinks. Yep. That stinks. Dr. Durst in the chat. Is the wise man trying to tick him off even more as a motivational strategy? I don't know. I don't know where, again, according to this internet rumor, I don't know where Braun Breaker's feelings sit right now. I would be upset with what's going on right now because I don't think what's going on right now is very good. I don't think that's very good. But again, if you look at his creative from January to May, shoot, that's pretty good. I'll take that 5 months. I don't like the injury, but I'll take that 5 months. Jeez. So again, working on a segment here, putting some logic on some internet wrestling rumors. We'll see how that goes. All right. 2 more things to get to on tonight's episode. Appreciate you guys being with us live in the chat or listening on podcast. Thank you so much for doing that. Again, follow us on whatever podcast platform that you're listening on. Subscribe to us on the YouTube channel. We would appreciate that so very much. My name is Chris Belcher. This is Squared Circle Radio. If you're new here, we appreciate you so much. All right. Lots of people on the internet also. A lot of people on the internet not happy this week. Why is that? I don't understand. Lots of people on the internet not happy with the additions to this interim women's ladder match coming up at SummerSlam. This ladder match taking place because Rhea Ripley is not going to be able to compete at SummerSlam. So an interim champion will be crowned. And then that champion, I assume, will face Rhea Ripley when she comes back. Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton are the ones that have qualified so far. And I didn't like the way that Jade qualified. I thought the DQ finish with Nia Jax was just terrible. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Nia Jax now getting another shot next week against Charlotte Flair. I didn't like that at all. But here's where me and the internet differ. I love Tiffany Stratton being in this match. Dr. Durst in the chat earlier mentioned Brock Lesnar drawing a crowd. I'm not sure she's going to draw as much as Brock Lesnar, but Tiffany Stratton is from Minnesota. So she won't have her contingency of fans at SummerSlam. And now the internet saying, well, she's got a championship already. Why don't you just have her in a championship match at SummerSlam? I don't think the Women's U.S. Championship is getting on SummerSlam as a single match. So just like Liv Morgan being in the Queen of the Ring tournament, sorry, Andy, it adds star power. And you're adding Tiffany Stratton, a star in her home state, to a ladder match. Is she going to win? Probably not. But since there's not going to be a Women's U.S. Championship match on that show, not going to be room for it, yeah, like Dr. Durst in the chat says, it's Tiffy time. Put her in the match. What does it hurt? If she's not going to be involved in this other thing, if that's not going to make it on the show, put her in this ladder match. Why not? But by the way they're playing this out, I do think it's probably going to be just SmackDown women So I anticipate Charlotte qualifying next week, maybe Nia. Got to think Chelsea Green's probably going to be in there. Maybe Julia. I was really hoping JC Jane would get in there. Kiana James, put her in there. Probably keep it to just SmackDown. I would throw some girls from Raw in there, but probably just be SmackDown. We'll see. We'll see. All right, one more topic to get to tonight. This week in wrestling history, not just this day, this week in wrestling history, July 22nd, is a very, very, very special day because we wish the greatest of all time, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, a very happy birthday on July the 22nd. Now, you all know how I feel about Shawn Michaels. He's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. Nobody touches this dude. He is number one on Mount Rushmore, the greatest in-ring performer of all time. And there's just not anything else I can say. I can't. If people ask me to defend Shawn Michaels, he's not the greatest of all time. Can you just go watch WrestleMania 25 against The Undertaker? Just go watch it. And then tell me why he's not the greatest of all time. Yeah, Dr. Durst, happy birthday, Shawn Michaels. He's the greatest of all time. Also, on July the 22nd, back in 2002, began the 2-year feud between Shawn Michaels and Triple H. It was the night that they reformed DX. Triple H turned on him, and it led to Shawn's return match at SummerSlam 2002, which if you haven't watched that match in a while, treat yourself. Go back and watch those two duke it out. Probably the greatest SummerSlam match of all time. If you've never seen it, go out of your way this week to watch it. You will not be disappointed. Shawn out of the ring for 4.5 years, coming in cold, wrestling 45 minutes, greatest SummerSlam match of all time. And goes from the greatest in ring, like Dr. Durst says, now he's a mentor. He's running creative in NXT and doing a fantastic job. I must say so myself. So, that Shawn and Triple H match from 2002, again, sparked 2-year feud, fueled the comeback to, in my opinion, solidifying Shawn as the greatest of all time. So, happy birthday to the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. I haven't watched the documentary yet. It's terrible on my part, but I want to watch it uninterrupted. That's why I haven't watched it yet. So, do yourself a favor, treat yourself to some Shawn Michaels on his birthday. All right. That is going to do it. Man, we went an hour. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. If you missed any of the show, again, go back and check it out. Rewind it. Go watch the clips. We've got several playlists on our channel. Excuse me, I need a burp. Go back and watch all the clips on the channel. We'd appreciate that very much. Unreal drops tomorrow. Season 3 of Unreal. Andy will be back. He's on a work trip. He will be back next week. We are going to record our reaction to Unreal. We're going to post that as a bonus show next week. So give us a week to watch it. We'll react to it next week. We will also preview SummerSlam coming up next week right here on Monday night, live after Raw. And if that's not enough, for those of you live in the chat, for those of you new to the channel, make sure you're subscribed. Turn on that notifications bell, because next weekend, next Saturday and Sunday, immediately following night 1 and 2 of SummerSlam, we'll be right here live on the channel for you, breaking it all down, instant reactions immediately following the show. We want you live in the chat with us. We want your thoughts. We want your opinions. We're going to share ours just instant feelings, instant reaction to what we see at SummerSlam. And we know since Triple H has taken over, since 2021, I know that was a little before Triple H, but since 2020, actually, huge returns every year at SummerSlam for the last 5 years. Who's going to be this year? SummerSlam is getting as big as WrestleMania. What's this year going to look like? Last year was incredible. Year before that. So do not miss our live reaction show right here on the channel immediately following SummerSlam. Thank you guys so much for being with us. Again, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Smash that like button. We'd appreciate it so much. My name is Chris Belcher. This has been another edition of Squared Circle Radio Live. We will catch you guys down the road.